How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to round 3 of the Wide League Scarlet and Violet VGC 2023 Series 1 tournament. My name is Eric once again, and I'm back with Casual Boy. We've got ourselves a good third round match picked for you guys. We got JoeUX9, who is coming off a very nice 7-2 record in the Victory Road tournament. Actually was playing this tour simultaneously while playing his final rounds at the Victory Road event. So has made his way over to, I believe he's 2-0 now, going into the Wide League tournament. So now fully focused on this tournament. We've got Joe's team on the screen, or we'll be getting it shortly, but it looks like he has got a squad of Skeledirge, King Gambit, Sylveon, Hydreigon, Garchomp, and Grimmsnarl. Meanwhile, DaniaBP, his opponent, will be rocking the King Gambit, Baxcalibur, Armor Rouge, Dragapult, Indeedee, and Amoonguss. So, yeah, looking at these teams, what are we thinking? What are we thinking about this matchup?
I'm thinking it's gonna be a close one. Both of them have very similar concepts to each other, in that being the fire type next to the King Gambit, next to the good dust Pokemon that you often see. And of course, this is a team that looks very similar to the one that JoeUX9 did use to do very well in one of the recent tournaments. So both I believe the Limitless one, and there was another one he did as well, where he took a team of Rotom Heat, which did very, very well. So it's not something he is completely unknown to and can really take advantage of this situation.
Yeah, unfortunately, Joe is, sorry. Okay, so we got King Gambit and Grimmsnarl out here. Amoonguss going for the Rage Powder, going to be redirecting any attacks away from that Baxcalibur. Grimmsnarl going for that Taunt, going to be shutting down any of Amoonguss's support shenanigans, including going for a Rage Powder on this next turn. Meanwhile, Baxcalibur goes for the Dragon Dance, going to be boosting its stats, its attack stat by 1, speed stat by 1. So it's going to be, if it wasn't already, going to be the fastest thing on the field. Bisharp going for the Iron Head, gets the reveal of the Rocky Helmet there. So going to be taking a little bit of chip damage. So Amoonguss taunted, takes a little bit of damage, but we did get some setup here on this very first turn. So we're going to have to see what Baxcalibur is going to be doing with its newfound speed. But we're going to see the Amoonguss switch out here. Going to be resetting that taunt, so it could potentially do some stuff maybe in the future in favor of another redirection Pokemon, the Indeedee, which is also going to be setting up the Psychic Terrain. Going to be stopping Grimmsnarl's prankster shenanigans that do happen to target the other side. Indeedee also revealing that it has the Psychic Seed, so it can be boosting its special defense with the Psychic Seed there, as we're going to see the Terastallization come out from Dania's side, going to be terastallizing the Baxcalibur. It's going to be the Terastallize of the ground type on the Baxcalibur, so a very interesting Terra type, not a Terra type that we see on Baxcalibur very often. Grimmsnarl going to respond with a Reflect as Baxcalibur goes for the Terra Blast. This is going to be going into the King Gambit at +1. King Gambit still retaining its original typing, going to hang on that Terra Blast, and it is going to activate King Gambit's weakness policy. So now King Gambit going to be firing off a very, very strong attack here, going for the Iron Head into the Baxcalibur +2. Unfortunately, not an Ice type anymore, so Baxcalibur going to be hanging on.
Yeah, Baxcalibur hanging on with that very, very unorthodox choice of a Terastallization type. Of course, it does give you the opportunity to hit those strong Steel types, strong Fire types, and Rock types, which are hitting you super effectively normally, as well as removing that super effectiveness. So it's kind of like, hey, you're doing this damage, I'm going to hit right back at you. Of course, it does give that area where you can activate weakness policies that we're seeing here, but even that weakness policy boost, Baxcalibur's new typing, as well as its pretty decent stat spread, meant it could live. As you see, a Protect coming out from King Gambit, it's got its boost, it wants to do what it's done, what it needs to do. It wants to sit around the field, see what it can take, see what is thrown at it. Follow Me from Indeedee does mean it can take the hits that were going towards our slot, even though it's probably going to be a Spirit Break, which isn't going to be very impactful on the physical attacker of the Baxcalibur. Indeedee, though, it's redirected it, taking a hit away, but it is going to be dropping its special attack for that maybe Psyshock or Psychic that it can go for later down the line. JoeUX9, though, looking in a very, very good position just to start throwing out damage, maybe get some screen set up if he has them to make sure his Baxcalibur does less damage, as Follow Me does come out from the Indeedee.
Yeah, Follow Me going to be redirecting the attacks away from Baxcalibur, but Baxcalibur more than content to just fire off an Icicle Spear into this Bisharp. I wonder if this is... I feel like it only needs 4 hits here, so the 4 hits going into the King Gambit, possibly indicating that it is going to be holding the loaded dice. I know that's a very popular item with Icicle Spear, Baxcalibur, so obviously getting the 4 hits perhaps indicative of that item being held. Going to be easy getting the KO onto King Gambit. Another Spirit Break goes into Indeedee, just lowering its special attack a little bit more, but, you know, Indeedee's just fine click and follow me right now.
Yeah, Indeedee's perfectly fine. Click and follow me. If Joe picks up on that pattern, he can start setting up screens again. If he has them, some Grimmsnarl have opted to have moves like Thunder Wave, or maybe some other sports move, like maybe a Fake Out even, just to go ahead and get that real momentum set rather than putting up screens and then doing nothing for the rest of the game. As you see, a terrestrialization is coming on through from Joe's opponent, going on to that height, or that from Joe. I do apologize, I may have got the side of the field wrong. The Hydreigon is terrestrializing and is going to be putting a lot of resistance down. There is Joe's, because of course we did have the terrestrialization of the ground type earlier, and the Helping Hand coming out as well as onto the Icicle Spear does even more damage now. Grimmsnarl not behind any screens, gets hit by a crit as well, meaning what could have been a hang-on could have been, you know, could have been mitigated as it goes down. So no screens whatsoever, no weird funky damage drops. This Pokemon is gone. Indeedee was enough of a hindrance for it, and this just being on the field is even more as Dark Pulse goes to Baxcalibur, foregoing that super effectiveness on Indeedee and getting a knockout onto a terrestrialized Pokemon, meaning that there's only one Terra type on the field, and it is very good typed for what we can see in front of it.
Yeah, fun fact actually for those who weren't keeping up with Joe's stream. Joe actually played the first 2 rounds of this tournament without the Terra Orb because he was playing on a second card. So one of the questions I had going into this this particular round was he going to be able to terrestrialize? And surely enough, Hydreigon now showing off the Terra Steel, indicating that it can terrestrialize. So Joe finally getting his first KO there, and now is looking to be in probably a more favorable position. I like his position a lot more because he just has a lot more aggression on the field right now.
He has got a lot more aggression on the field, and both players really have that aggression. Baxcalibur was very aggressive, but doesn't really pose a threat. Armarouge is super effective into the Hydreigon now, thanks to the typing, but is going to be weak to this Earthquake, and Levitate means that it's not going to take a hit even whilst being a Steel type. Armarouge lives on a bread sliver of HP, gets its weakness policy, which is going to be very, very scary if it goes with that expanding force. That's going to be big damage to both these Pokemon. Indeed, it's done its job. It's got the train up. It's done a couple of follow me. It's been a little nuisance on the field, and it's going to drop down. As you see Dark Pulse coming out onto the Armarouge, outsped and outwitted, goes down. No posse for it there, and Joe just controls the game here completely. That Terra type probably making it even easier, like you said, in those past couple of games where he just didn't have the time to get to the Terra Orb and was running on the bare minimum. Amoonguss comes on out, and really, these 2 Pokemon, they can be put to sleep. One of them's going to stay awake for at least 1 turn. The damage is going to be thrown down, and this Amoonguss is going to be a mushroom no more.
Yeah, that's the sort of downside of Baxcalibur going down there. I mean, it just seems like Dania lost a lot of offensive pressure from their side, and it just seemed like, you know, Armarouge obviously was outsped and very much going to be out damaged there, and very susceptible, especially without having the Terra accessible there to withstand something like Earthquake and Dark Pulse. Just no chance at that point. Indeedee was going to go down to the Earthquake, and then it would just had to take the Dark Pulse. So what seemed like a very promising opening for Dania turns into a victory for JoeUX9, showing that now having the ability to Terra Orb as it is at his full strength, now being able to focus on this tournament, quite a formidable foe indeed. But if you're Dania, how do you adapt to this this very aggressive and very strong team that Joe has?
I think the best way is just to maybe pace the terrestrialization a little bit better, work out where it is going to be on Joe's side as well. Yes, you did catch the Pokemon off guard with the Terra Ground. You did have that momentum of like, oh, it's unorthodox, I can go for it, I can knock it out. But maybe revealing it a bit later on so you can call out some of the picks. Yes, you're not hitting the Hydreigon very well, but if you're forcing it into that Steel typing to take those Ice type hits, that's other Pokemon that are really you can work around. And then with that loaded dice with Helping Hand, that's doing me a lot of damage. You saw it do a very big damage to a Steel type in the King Gambit earlier. Yes, it was on low HP, but it's still a very threatening amount of damage. So maybe keeping that around a little bit later on, or maybe just going straight for that Armor Rouge play, making it so the damage is straight away. And there it is, Armor Rouge coming out of Indeedee. This is this season's expanding Force Pokemon, the only one to get it, so it's why it's so commonly used.
Yeah, Trick Room, I think, going to be a very valuable asset here. I think slowing down the onslaught of Joe's Pokemon, especially those double dragons in the back, going to be a very valuable tool here. Armor Rouge, especially a lot more freed up to get that Trick Room off, especially now not being faced down by a Garchomp, able to spam its super effective Earthquakes, being in front of a little bit more of a passive lead from Joe. But Grimmsnarl and Sylveon can still do a ton of work here to try and get some screens up and maybe just start pushing damage immediately. But we're actually going to see Armor Rouge switch out for the King Gambit. So we're going to see the King Gambit from the opposing side this time, as Grimmsnarl going for the light screen, going to be boosting the special defense. As the Hyper Voice comes out, does a ton of damage, gets a critical hit on the Indeedee, and we actually see the Trick Room come out from Indeedee there. So showing a bit of the, well, I mean, to be honest, we don't really know if this is supposed to be a part of the game, but it looks like it's here to stay. So Indeedee now is a Trick Room setter of its own, being able to set up a Trick Room. So now that Indeedee Armor Rouge lead becomes a lot stronger with that Trick Room sort of mix-up play that you can go for, as Joe going for the Terrastalize this time onto the Sylveon, the Terra Fire Sylveon, which is probably the most common one we've seen so far this season, giving it the valuable coverage of the Fire-type Terra Blast, and also giving it a very nice Steel resistance. So we're going to see the Helping Hand come out from Indeedee onto King Gambit as Grimmsnarl fires off a Reflect, making it slightly stronger against those physical attacks, as King Gambit's Iron Head going into the Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl, I believe, ate its Babiri Berry, so yeah, going to be able to hang on with ease after that Reflect goes up, as Sylveon gets another Hyper Voice off, does a ton of damage, and able to score the double knockout. So Joe finding yet another way to win here, as Sylveon, as we've seen in sets past, has just been a very, very potent attacker.
Yeah, Sylveon just showing its strength. It's one of those Pokemon that when it is in a format which is very condensed, it's going to be one of the strongest ones. It's very reminiscent of maybe how Xerneas is in those restricted formats, in that it's a fairy type that can boost its damage with its ability. It can now boost its damage even further with Throat Spray, giving it its own little mini Geomancy, and it also has the ability to, if it wants to, Terrestrialize, giving it moves maybe that are powered up because they're fairy type, moves because they're powered up because they're a new typing. Wide Guard, though, revealed from the Armor Rouge, which is going to be very, very good for catching out those moves, such as the Hyper Voice, as Spore goes off first, puts that Grimmsnarl to sleep. And of course, that Trick Room up, that Spore is going to be very, very potent, because once it ticks over and you wake up, Amoonguss, if it's still in Trick Room, can put you to sleep. Wide Guard, no damage whatsoever. You could see maybe a Terra Blast for Fire type go into that Amoonguss. That's Amoonguss gone. But then that's still leaving you open to the Armor Rouge. You can now just click Expanding Force, because Joe is on that mind game, on that timer. Will we see Wide Guard? Will we see attack? You can't keep spamming Wide Guard. You can't keep spamming your attacks. And will it be optimal to alternate between the two? They've got to find that pace. They've got to find that rhythm. And that's what both players will be looking for going into later turns of this game.
Yeah, so Amoonguss proving itself to be quite a valuable asset in Trick Room, as now we're finally going to see the Terrestrialization come out onto the Armor. It is Terra Psychic, so like you said, like you've been teasing this entire game, this Expanding Force, the sole holder of Expanding Force in this format, and quite a powerful user of Expanding Force, even further powered up by this Psychic-type Terrestrialization, is going to be a ton of damage. Of course, not going to damage Grimmsnarl because it's a Dark type, but I mean, this is looking quite scary for the Sylveon here, as it is not going to be resisted or immune. Grimmsnarl just going to take a turn of sleep there, as the Expanding Force comes out, going to hit the Sylveon. It does very little damage there, probably because of the light screen. So Sylveon not taking a lot of damage there at all, as the Clear Smog going to hit the Grimmsnarl. Not really doing much in terms of removing stats, but just a nice super effective hit. The Spirit Break onto the Armor Rouge, going to be lowering the special attack, further weakening those Expanding Forces. So yeah, as Sylveon going to be the last one to move this turn, gets a Hyper Voice off, does a ton of damage to the Armor Rouge, and Oh, now the Expanding Force is coming out. Yeah, it does another chunk of damage to the Sylveon there. As Trick Room is going to be the one to expire. And so is Psychic Terrain.
Trick Room and Psychic Terrain do expire on that last turn, where it could have been abused by both of these Pokemon. Of course, we did catch a glimpse, I believe, in Team Preview of Sylveon is choice specs, so that's why it can maybe have a bit more bulk to take these hits it's been taking, and as well as that, it's going to be locked into that move that Wide Guard can prevent. So now that we know this, Joe's opponent could just go, okay, Wide Guard, Wide Guard, Wide Guard, Wide Guard. Yes, it's not stopping the Grimmsnarl, but it is stopping that Indeedee. If you can slow down that Indeedee, you can really change the pace of the game. Wide Guard, of course, does protect both the Pokemon there. Moongus can't Spore after a taunt. Reflect has gone. Not going to be too much of a bother because these Pokemon are both special attackers. And with that, we can just set a pace of Spirit Break, Light Screen, attack. The battle has been cancelled, though. I did not catch a glimpse of who did that. I believe that might be the opponent. As yep, Joe does take that win, goes 2-0, and going 3-0 in a tournament. 2 of those rounds where you did not have terrestrialization is amazing. I know we've seen players go without Mega Evolution before in tournaments, without Dynamax or Gigantamax. But the fact that terrestrialization is such more of a laid-back thing, and it can change the flow of the game completely differently instead of being a flat-out, this Pokemon destroys it, it's more of a defensive or an offensive mechanic. A really, really good show from Joe.
Yes, a very strong player. Did top cut the World Championships this past year. Very avid streamer. Been cutting these Scarlet and Violet tours like all over the place. So very, very good stuff to Joe and his opponent. But we are now going to be moving into our next round. Stay tuned for round 4, and we'll be right back with some more Wide League VGC action.